The half cab is one of the most iconic skate sneakers of all time. Everyone wore them when I was a kid. They've been popular for 30 plus years, but they've been pushing these really hard again more recently with claims of a complete new redesign made for the modern skater, upgraded materials. But are all those modern improvements actually an improvement, or is this just a cash grab by Vans to capitalize on the nostalgia of the half cab? Or are they actually good skate sneakers? Or how do they compare to modern skate sneakers? Are they worth the money? And is this another example of a big brand selling out their iconic silhouettes just to make an extra buck? So what is the information on this shoe? Well, the brand is Vans. The style is a skate half cab. They weigh right at 1 pound. They retail for $85. They're made in Vietnam, and the way they position this is completely redesigned for modern skateboarding. The Skate Classic collection delivers more of what skateboarders need to enable maximum progression. Made with classic suede and canvas upper, the skate half cab gives you the iconic look you want while bringing all the performance benefits skateboarders demand. If you want a pair of these, check them out via links in my description.
So some short history of Vans. In 1966, brothers Paul Van Doren and Jim Van Doren, along with their partners Gordon Lee and Serge Delia, I think, opened for business in Anaheim, California. The Van Doren Rubber Company is unique that it manufactures shoes on the premises and sells them directly to the public. So I think you'd go there in the morning, buy them, you pick them up at night or the next day. That's how that worked, which is sick. So they made the style number 44 deck shoe. It was a low profile, Oxford-like silhouette, and it attracted the attention of local skateboarders because of the durable makeup and the sticky soles. Made it really good for skating. But then in 1976, legendary skaters and Dogtown gang, Tony Alva and Stacy Peralta, they created an updated version of the 44. It was backed by a padded collar, had different color combinations, and kind of becomes the shoe of choice for a generation of skateboarders. That same year, like the Vans Off the Wall logo makes its debut. And then in 1977, Vans debuts the Style 36, which is now known as the Old School. The Old School was Vans' first skate shoe that incorporated leather panels for increased durability. It was also the first shoe to have their infamous side stripe, which started as a doodle by Paul Van Doren, and he referred to it as the Jazz Stripe. So through 1977-78, Vans released a whole bunch of classic styles. It's like the slip-on and the skate high. They kind of became iconic in the skate world and bled over into just like regular pop culture, kind of like Spicoli wearing the checkerboard slip-ons and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And by the end of the 70s, Vans had 70 stores in California, and they sold kind of nationally and internationally through different dealers. We could go way deeper onto Vans history, but we're going to focus on this specific half cab history because it's super cool. So in the 80s, professional skater Steve Caballero was known for his difficult tricks and air variations and like inventing tricks vert skating. He set a very long-standing record for having the highest air achieved on a half pipe. He's credited as inventing the frontside board slide and the caballerial or cab. It's a fakie backside 360. And the half cab, which is a fakie backside 180 or half of a 360. Hopefully that makes sense to non-skaters. So in 1989, Vans and Steve Caballero released his signature shoe, which gets credited as like the first signature skate shoe, the Caballero. It was a high top. It kind of looks like a combo of a skate high and like a Jordan 1. Cab said, "I wanted a shoe that was functional for vert and skating pools, but that was also stylish." So he incorporated like reinforced toe pieces, extra ankle support for protection while skating super steep transition. But as the 90s started, skating kind of went from like vert and half pipes and transition into skating streets. So skaters, they'd buy the Vans cab shoe, but it was so high they would just start chopping it down. They literally just cut off the top, duct tape around the edge, and then go. Skating's like a really like DIY culture. Like you make your own spots, you like pouring concrete, bondoing over cracks. Skaters like Javante Turner, Mike Carroll, Sal Managa, tons of people were doing it. I feel like those guys really helped popularize the trend of cutting cabs down, which is cool because Steve Caballero heard about this trend and he started to cut down his own shoes, and he loved it. He said, by my second or third pair, I was over that. Why don't we just make it like that? Which is super cool. And then in 1992, Vans and Steve Caballero released the half cab, the mid-top version of the full cab. It catered to the needs of skaters that were cutting them down. It was still pretty good for skating like the pools and transition and vert. It was just a good shoe for both skaters. I mean, everyone loved it. And it's really cool to see a company, they're like, this is what everyone's doing. If you can't beat them, join them. And they made the actual shoe. Since its release in 92, it's been kind of a staple of the Vans product offering. I mean, it's kind of like the shoe that will always be there through the trends. It's lasted for 30 years, but recently Vans claims that it has been completely updated for modern skating, like you heard in the positioning. Luckily, I'm pretty good friends with a former designer. He designed a ton of stuff for the Skate Vans line, so I ask him questions and bug him all the time about shoe construction. So I asked him, I was like, what does completely updated for modern skating mean? and he said they do occasional revamps of like the old models. Changes like a new last shape, like different foam compounds in the collar, rubber compounds are different, the construction is cleaner and more comfortable, and adding Duracap, which I don't really know what it is. You can't, Vans Marketing does a bad job. He says it's a layer in between some layers. But are all these changes like just a cover to make a shoe cheaper, or is it still one of the best? I don't really know. So we're gonna throw it to Weston. He's gonna break down the upper and the leather because he's the leather daddy. So I guess off to Weston.
This is a really popular micro adjust belt. I think a lot of people misunderstood how it all worked and what it is. So we made a little embossed stamp on the back to give you clear instructions on how this works, and it just turned out really cool. So let me show you how this works and why people love it so much, because this micro adjust belt came about because I was so sick of buying these nice leather belts. You buy it brand new, fits you perfectly. After a week, stretch it out just a little bit. Now one tight's too loose, one's too tight, and you wish you had a hole right in the middle. That's what this does. It literally splits the difference between each of these holes by making a tiny little adjustment here on the back. So the way you do that is you take this Allen wrench and you put it into the hex head top part of the Chicago screw. Now we've got them undone. So we're gonna take them out, and all we're doing is just shifting the holes to the next hole. So you can see there's a plus sign there. So if you shift it that way, it's gonna make it like half an inch bigger. If you shift it the other way, it's gonna make it half an inch smaller. And that is how you split the difference between one hole that's too tight, one's too loose. Little teeny micro adjust, it makes all the difference in the world. These are really popular, and we're just trying to build out our belt offering. So this is more of a casual belt, but stay tuned for more micro adjust stuff in a few different variations of belts. So check them out below. Thanks for supporting our business and everything we do, the handmade stuff we make here in the shop that support the YouTube channel. Plus you get handmade American goods made from American leather, made by us. What more could you ask for? Especially when it comes to making a belt actually fit you. So check them out below. Thanks, guys. So let's start looking at this material with the canvas and this new suede. What is it actually like? They say it's reconstructed with the molded heel counter, internal tongue, straps to help lock you in, and most of the stitchings in these high wear areas have been removed or replaced or switched around. But not much is said about how they improved the leather or canvas. So we started looking at the leather, took a measurement. It's 1.5 millimeters thick, so it's about that sneaker thickness. We looked at the cross section. It is a true suede, where suede is that lower cross section of leather, where that top portion is what you associate with like the really smooth leather. And then as you go further down that cross section, it gets more and more fibrous, bigger fibers, which they're easier to separate and it's easier to have it fall apart. Like you've probably seen a pair of shoes with a thin piece of suede, it just literally falls apart. But at the same time, all those big fibers are really abrasion resistant. They don't really get cut off. They just kind of move on the grip tape more than a solid piece of grain. And so that's why almost every single sneaker you see is made with suede. And skate shoes, like Sam's talked about, he blows through in like a few months, and these are not cheap. They're not like they're 50 bucks, they're 80 to 100 bucks. The canvas, I love the canvas. You know, I just love canvas as a material. It's a super old school, traditional way of making fabric, and it's fairly abrasion resistant. And that's why sailors have used canvas for hundreds of years. That's why like saddlebags for like horses are made out of really heavy canvas. It's just a really strong, durable material. And so I like that it's on a skate shoe. Obviously it's not in like your super high wear areas, maybe a little around the collar, but I just like canvas. And I really, really like the pattern of this. I like how this last eyelet is almost like a lineman patch. It sweeps up, so there's no hard lines here to wear through. You've got this entire area without any stitches. Instead of accidentally blowing through a stitch and your shoe is shot, you gotta wear through all that leather first. So I like the upper, but I've always liked the half cab look and the whole story behind it. But what about the lining? This is just a very classic sneaker lining. It's kind of a terry cloth kind of material. Like they said, they do have these tongue straps in there that hold that tongue from slipping one side to the other. And part of that support that they give you is this really, really tough, dense foam they put around the collar. It's probably the like most rigid foam that I've ever felt in a sneaker, and that's because it's function-based. It's supposed to grip your heel. It's supposed to protect your heel from a board slamming into your ankle, like the whole story says. And they've upgraded this to be even stiffer for more protection and more cradling of your heel. And obviously the classic slightly puffy tongue from the early 90s and 80s. And something that really goes unnoticed is this little teeny eyelet right here. There's only one eyelet that actually has a metal eyelet. The rest are just like go through the leather, because this one specific eyelet is set back because it's made to lock your heel in even more. And so they need to reinforce that because all that pressure is going to be more focused on this eyelet than any other eyelet because it's set back and it's made to lock your instep in.
So if we move to the insole, it has removable Popcush cushioning. And what Vans says about that is our best cushioning and impact protection. Popcush energy return footbeds protect your feet while helping to lessen leg fatigue for longer skate sessions. So that's super marketing jargon heavy. But here's what the Popcush actually is. So it's just a closed cell foam. It's got a fabric topper, pretty similar to the rest of the skate insoles we've seen. Put the durometer on it. It comes in about 17 to 18 Shore A, so it's pretty soft. Like those last resorts, I think the VMO ones were like in the 35 range, so this one is pretty soft. We did the ball drop test to see how much the ball drops back up, and it pops up 13 inches, which is pretty good. So it's definitely soft, but it has some good rebound in it, the higher end of the skate shoes. But honestly, like skating this, I wasn't a big fan of it. It feels okay, like it just feels like a normal insole at the beginning. Maybe a little too cushiony. I feel like every time you're going to like ollie or jump or load, you kind of squish in. It's like your jump was only going to the foam instead of to the actual like motion you want to do. Kind of like jumping in sand a little bit. Especially like the more I skated, the more it got broken in, the more it felt like I was jumping in sand. It's not the worst, it's just not my preference. I think a little denser foam would be perfect. So if we go to the outsole, it's got the classic, Vans waffle pattern. Allegedly the Van Dorns used a waffle iron to create the pattern on the first shoes, similar to Nike. I also learned that the mold for the first waffle soles is actually in the Smithsonian Museum, which is crazy. So, Vans marketing about this says, its legendary grip, our proprietary 6-stick gum rubber compound is our stickiest rubber yet. It also says there's increased durability Duracap, reinforced materials, deeper neural texture on the toe bumpers, and higher sidewall heights provide a more heritage look with increased durability and protection. They do look pretty high, they go pretty far. I'm pretty average for a skate shoe, honestly. I'm not really even sure what Duracap is. They do a really bad job of explaining it. Honestly, it didn't feel any different from a lot of skate shoes I've worn. It's still pretty good. We put the durometer on it. It comes in around 55 to 60 Shore A, so it's pretty average. It was probably revolutionary at the time it came out, where it's like, oh, it's soft, it's super sticky, but now it's just like, I don't know, average outsole. We did the bar drop test on it where we smashed it down against this. So it bounces up 5.25 inches, which is fairly low. It cushions okay, it didn't feel like bad wearing it. We did the puncture test, and it punctured through at 90 pounds, which is pretty good for a sneaker. Sometimes they'll go through at like 50 pounds, so it should be pretty durable. Like, you can see I was wearing it and there's no like crazy low spots on it, and I wore it a lot. So that brings us to the construction as a whole, and like the rubber. So a cup sole is when like a whole unit of rubber is just attached to the bottom and like glued and stitched around. And vulcanized is when they put a piece of rubber on the bottom and then they wrap another piece of rubber called the foxing around the outside. It's kind of like uncured rubber, so they throw it in a big oven to bake, cures together and creates like one solid unit. So the pros of vulcanization is it's super soft, so it's really grippy, way less break-in. I mean, it's pretty much good to skate right out of the box. Super good board feel. The cons are it's not as durable as a cup sole. The impacts are harder on your feet, and vulcanization kind of lends to like delamination like around the sides. I'm sure you've had a pair of shoes that this has come off the sides and it creates a little like thing. We'll put some B-roll up to show kind of what that means. Honestly, this outsole didn't seem to wear any differently than a lot of my other skate shoes. You can kind of see where it starts to break, where I'm doing kick flips. I think it's just the downfall of vulcanized shoes. Like right here where I flick, it just blasts through super fast. There's probably about 1,000 kickflip attempts along with ollies and everything else. So you're gonna kick through that eventually. I think that's gonna happen to all vulcanized shoes. But other than that, like it held up pretty well. I skated this for probably longer than any other of the skate shoes we've done, and it's held up super well. Because it's vulcanized, you get a lot more board feel. So on a rank of like 1 being the absolute most and 10 being no board feel at all, I'd probably give it like a 3. I've seen a ton of comments asking about like the non-skating attributes of this. So as like a sneaker itself, it's pretty comfortable to walk around in. The Popcush is pretty cushiony, just feels like a pretty solid sneaker. If you're not skating it, like you could skate in this and continue walking around it and you'd be fine. It wouldn't like hurt your feet or anything. Sizing is a little odd for me specifically. I usually wear a 9.5. I like my shoes pretty snug. I went up to a 10 in these. It's a little pointy on the toes. It fit really well on the toes in a 9.5, but it was way too small, like across like some metatarsal knuckles, right here, whatever you call that part. It's not like a Converse where it's like a clown shoe, so take that for what it's worth. So that's pretty much everything we can see from the outside. I'm super interested to like actually cut these in half and see all the materials and all the marketing jargon and what's actually in here. So let's get these things chopped. Okay, so we got it cut in half, and I did a little extra dissecting because it was super interesting to me. So make sure to, like, comment, subscribe, all the nonsense you do, because that's the only way we can really pay to cut apart 3 shoes a week. And if you like these skate shoe videos, make sure to watch them a lot and send them to all your friends, because the more views it gets, the more likely we are to do more skate shoes, and I think it's super sick, and I like reviewing skate shoes, so watch them. I guess let's see what's inside. So there are some sick things in here that Vans either doesn't advertise or just doesn't advertise very well and explain like what it actually is. So Duracap, I really thought this was like in the foxing or something, or like the extra layer here, just like some marketing jargon, like, oh yeah, we have Duracap. But like, it's just like the New Balance 306 where there's an extra layer of rubber. So I dissected the whole thing out after we had cut it in half to see how far down it goes. And it's huge, like it's the whole toe panel, and it goes all the way down to the lasting board, which is sick. I feel like they do a horrible job of explaining what this is. Like if this was me, I would focus all of the marketing to be like, guess what, you like the half cab? Well, we added an extra layer here, and this is the half cab Duracap extra layer shoe. Vans, do a better job of marketing. I don't know what's up with that. I was texting my former Vans skate designer friend, I was like, yo, Vans does a really bad job of like telling people what this is, and he's like, yeah, I know, it's crazy, we did that for all the skate classics. So shout out to Vans for actually updating it. So another cool thing is like the split lasting layer here. It kind of looks like a shank, so I asked my Vans designer friend about it, and he said it's to make the heel stiffer and the toe floppier. So like it provides rigidity here without losing the board feel that you want in a vulcanized shoe here, and I think that's a great idea. I mean, it's not talked about one bit in the whole thing. And then you can kind of see here, we took off this panel. The heel counter itself doesn't actually add too much rigidity like they were saying, but the heel foam itself is like super stiff. It's like really dense. It makes it feel way stiffer without like adding a whole, I don't know, like extra panel or huge stiff counter that might not actually work. So it does a really good job, and it'll protect you from like smacking it with kickflips and stuff all the time like I do. So the whole skate analysis of the shoe is, I am actually really impressed with the shoe. Vans has done a really good job of updating the materials to keep it like competitive. Sometimes companies with long histories and like iconic silhouettes just kind of ride that wave into the sunset. They don't really update it. And when they do update it, it's like, yeah, we updated it. It has new vegan materials, and it's all just like fake leather. They get rid of everything. They cut it all down. And this one, it's done a good job of improving it without changing the aesthetics. It's just like a non-flashy kind of workhorse shoe that gets it done. It's one of those shoes, it'll probably always be around because it just fills so many niches and it just works. For $85, I'd say it's absolutely worth it. There's a lot of cool tech in here, and it lasts a pretty good amount of time. So kind of like the big pros of the shoes are durability. The toe, I mean, it's like, I skated these for a long time and it barely looks worn. The only place I was really kicking through was like right at the toe where I actually do kickflips. And that's just kind of like, I don't know, it's just kind of a downfall of vulcanized shoes as a whole. It would be cool if it was even more durable, because once that fails, it's hard to fix. The big cons of the shoe for me skating, the suede definitely gets pretty floppy when it's broken, and some like that. I prefer to have like a little stiffer shoe. I don't really love the padded ankle too much. It's like, I don't know, it's not really a pro or a con. It's just whatever. It's a mid-top shoe. It's nothing crazy. And stuff does get stuck in the waffle sole, which is kind of annoying. It's like the perfect shape to pick up little rocks. So that kind of sucks. That's like the cons of the shoe. But if I had to pick a skate shoe and they didn't have, my go-tos, I would pick up a half cap. I mean, it's just like a solid shoe. It's nothing like crazy. It's not flashy. It's not the most insane looking shoe. It's just like a solid shoe that gets the job done. It's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
So to me, I love the half cab. It's been an iconic shoe for so long. I always wanted a pair when I was a kid, but more specifically, I love the fact that they prioritize functionality over form, and it slowly informed the form because the functionality works so well. They started at high top, cut it down, and it looks goofy when you look at it. And then when I'm sure when these were first released, people are like, what is that? That's the ugliest, like, it looks like you literally just cut the top of a high top. Well, that's what it is. Like, the functionality was needed out there in the world. Finally, someone was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna cut the top off. And then once it was birthed into reality, it just took off. People loved it. And it's still 30 years later, one of the most iconic skate sneakers, and I love it.
So make sure to, watch this video, comment, like, subscribe, do all the things. We got a bunch of cool ones coming down the pipeline. We got like some Tiagos, some Asics. So let me know what you want to see. Let me know if I got anything wrong, or you like, turns out half cabs are secretly evil and I missed the whole point. Let me know what other stuff you want to see in skate reviews, like, I don't know, kickflip test, whatever. I think that's it. Go check out the Anvil store, buy some stuff, buy some leather stuff. Keep me employed, please. I think that's it. So, peace, I suppose. I don't know how many videos, so I'm just gonna walk up and leave. Have I been out of focus this whole time? That'd be embarrassing.